Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Justin and I make videos where I go through my allocation process using YNAB, which is a budgeting software called You Need a Budget. I also utilize Monarch Money, which is another budgeting system. However, I've been using YNAB for 2 months now, which means I've been using YNAB and Monarch together for 2 months. And I am not enjoying having to maintain both systems. Even though they both import things and auto categorize things, Monarch Money is so much more work than YNAB, mainly because the importing of Monarch Money is much slower. The same third-party data provider is used by both of them, but for some reason Monarch Money is much slower in importing transactions than YNAB. I mean, as an example, yesterday I pulled out of an ATM the money for my plasma card so I can transfer it to my Chase account. The ATM that I go to is across the street from where I live. And so it's a matter of minutes from getting that transaction completed to coming home. And in those few minutes, when I got home and logged on, it had already had that transaction ready as a pending transaction. So in the parking lot, when I input that transaction in my app on my phone, by the time I got home, YNAB had already linked it up. Whereas on Monarch, I auto refreshed, manually refreshed, and that transaction is still not on there. So additionally, I like how I like how YNAB automatically matches manually entered transactions with its counterpart when it's imported. That makes it super easy to manually keep up with your transactions and not have to do any extra steps. Monarch Money is not like that. So I can manually enter transactions in Monarch, but once that transaction imports from the bank, there's going to be a duplicate transaction on there. And then you've got to manually decide which one you're going to keep. So I know I verbally committed to using both in 2025. Fortunately, finances is very personal. I also haven't come up on my renewal for Monarch yet. I've been setting the money aside for it to renew in February. But I think I'm going to nix the idea of using both. Really, the only thing I liked about Monarch that YNAB doesn't give me are a couple graphical charts, and also the fact that I have my last 2 years of transactions already imported and categorized and already set. Whereas in YNAB, I only have transactions going back to November when I started. I'm not sure how the import works. Like I can export from Monarch all of my transactions and everything. I just don't know how streamlined it would be to import. I mean, at this point, I'm not necessarily going to miss that data. It'd be nice to have, but I can create a graph that looks similar to what Monarch gives me to compare this month versus last month and this month versus the same month last year in a graph. All I would need to do is just get the amount of money that I spent in that month in a spreadsheet, and I can create a graph in Excel. So there's really nothing tying me down to using Monarch anymore. And the fact that it's become much more of a hassle than I thought it would be, kind of keeping both together, I'm going to not renew. And what that means is the money that I've already set aside in my budget for Monarch. So I've already set aside $66.66. I had one more $33.33 allocation to make. What I'm going to do is I am going to move this to, I'm going to move it to my vehicle registration, which is here. I'm just going to move that money to vehicle registration. I'm going to delete this target for Monarch. And then I'm going to hide that transactions for now. I'm not going to delete it quite yet, just because you never know. Yeah, so I'm happy with that decision for now. Like I said, I've got another month to kind of really think about it, but it's been so much work to try to keep them both. And they're both out of sync with each other, right? YNAB, because I'm manually putting stuff in, is always going to be up to date. Monarch money is always going to be delayed. So that is the first thing I wanted to take care of. As you can see, 1826.92 is what's in ready to assign. That is from my regular paycheck that I got paid today. I've been still tracking my separate miscellaneous income, like my supplemental stuff. But I have to say, going 2 weeks without making a video really sucked. I look forward to making these videos, not only because it keeps me accountable. It's the main reason that I created this page in the first place. The time just drug on. Like, I feel like when I was making videos weekly, the time went by so fast. This last 2 weeks has really dragged on. I mean, at work, I've been super slammed with a lot of projects. We're losing a person on our team, and I'm kind of filling in as best I can. And so my role at work has been really slammed. This is why I'm super late on getting this video out. So yeah, I mean, I might consider going back to weekly videos. We'll see how it looks. Maybe I'll make a video on next week, Friday, and allocate my supplemental income to just that one target that I have. But yeah, I think I'm going to go back to making weekly videos. The supplemental income, you'll see that I have some new ones here. I've separated it out to differentiate between Uber, Plasma, which is my plasma donation. And then I've got this miscellaneous income as well. So for all of you who have kind of followed along, you know that I traded in my truck for a cheaper vehicle a couple weeks ago, Christmas Eve to be exact. Because Arizona requires me to pay for registration when I buy a vehicle, I already have my year registration for 2025 on the Jetta, which means I was able to request and get a refund from the registration that I paid like 2 weeks before I sold the truck. So that's that $334. This $20 from Fidelity, long story short, about 10 or 12 years ago, I used to work at PetSmart. Apparently, I had a retirement account there with a little bit of money in it. When I quit that job after like a year and a half, 2 years of working there, they closed that retirement account because it didn't have enough money in it to, I guess, warrant keeping it open. And they have been trying to send me that check for 10 years. I've moved around a lot in the last 10 years. I haven't really been in one place for, really longer than a year. And so they've been fighting to try to get my current mailing address to send me a letter, say, hey, you have this outstanding check. We're trying to get it to you. So for 10 years, they've been sending letters to the wrong address and have been missing me. Fortunately, where I live now, I've lived here, I'm going on my third lease, which means I've been here long enough for them to send a letter to this address that says, hey, we're trying to get you this check. So I reached out to them, got my address confirmed with them, and they sent me that $20 check, and I've deposited it. So on top of my $1826.92 regular paycheck, I also have, I don't know, my math sucks, so we'll do this. So I've got a little over $600 in supplemental income to budget as well. So we'll deal with the regular paycheck stuff first, and then I will get into my supplemental income. So the first thing I always do on my paychecks, my first and second paycheck of the month, is I fund my rent in half. So I do a half fund, which I want to shout out Kyle from You Suck at Budgeting. I knew this was a thing in the toolkit. I forgot about it since getting the toolkit, but there is an option on the toolkit that allows you to fund half of the target amount by clicking a button. So similar to doing the underfunded, there is this option for funding half. So I'm going to do that, use that little cool quick button. So $965 for February rent is set aside. I'm going to go back to January. So I don't have any underfunded, but there are things that don't have a target in January that I need to cover. One of them is my 2025, one of my 2025 goals. And then the other is my dog food. So my dog food I get from Chewy. It's on a auto ship cycle every 4 weeks. Because there are some months where I have to buy dog food twice because of the 4-week cycle, I don't have a target specifically for this one. Just the paycheck before I need to make that payment is when I put that money in there. So I do need to make a purchase. It's scheduled for the 24th, but I'll probably do it a little bit early just so I can have it in my possession sooner, especially since I'm funding it now. So I'm going to put that $100 aside for dog food. And then the other thing that I need to do, so one of my 2025 goals is to set aside every month $100 into discretionary. So I have been, every time I've made a video, I've been putting like $25 to $30 in each time. However, I want to start getting in the habit of just dumping $100 every month at some point in the month, probably closer to the beginning of the month, so that I have that money in lump sum in that account and I'm not having to chase transactions coming out of there. So I'm going to put $100 in discretionary. And then I think I already did this. I did this off camera, but I started a target starting in February to remind me that I need $100. I'm actually going to change that. I think I put the last day of the month. I'm going to do by the 1st because I want to have that money in the account for that month. Obviously right now I'm kind of already working with a half month gone. So I'm going to save that target as $100 by the 1st. And I'll kind of get that caught back up on a good cycle. It just sucks because of my biweekly paychecks are on different days throughout the month. So, and I very rarely get paid around the beginning of the month. It's either usually like a week before the beginning of the month or a week after the beginning of the month. So I have that set. Let's go back to January. I just want to make sure because I've got $661 left of my regular paycheck. I just want to see if there's anything else that I may have forgotten. Gas. So I usually put $50 a month in for gas. This car, I'm still at 3/4 of a tank and I've had it since Christmas Eve and I've put a couple hundred miles on the vehicle. So it wouldn't surprise me still if I don't need to put gas in until my first paycheck in February. Certainly I'll be able to make it through the end of the month. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But for now, I'm not going to need any of that. Utilities taken care of. All of those are funded. I don't need those. I've already taken care of discretionary. Emergency fund. So we're going to start this. We're going to do emergency fund after. So now I want to go into February because At this point, I would normally put this money, like all this money, into my emergency fund, because I'm gonna get paid again on the 29th, which means that paycheck would cover anything between the 29th and the 12th, which for all of you would be the second half of my rent. It would be those two bills, my groceries, and my utilities. So about $450. 450. I'll have to do this on the side. So 450 plus 965. So 1400 of my 1825 paycheck is gonna come from there. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna cover all of these. I might cover these smaller bills. What is oh, I don't want to do that. So that's 161. How do I want to do this? I don't want to fund all of this stuff because I do want to start funding my emergency fund. My goal is to have $1,000 in emergency fund by the end of January, which I know I'll be able to do. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I've funded everything that I need to fund. Everything from this point with this paycheck and all the money I have available is just going to be like extra. So I'm going to move the miscellaneous income up because I want to see how much money I'm actually working with here. So I'm going to move that up to ready to assign. And then I'm not going to move all of it. I was only able to pull, I don't know what I'm doing. I was only able to pull 260 out of an ATM because it's increments of 20. So I'll move that to ready to assign. And that'll leave me $5 left over. Okay, so so I'm going to do it this way. If I fund my emergency fund, which is, where is it? Oh, that shows you how much I use it. Okay, so if I fund 1,000, which is my goal to have funded $1,000 in my emergency fund by the end of January. So I will have that funded already. This target is just because my goal eventually is to have 2,500. So for those of you who don't know, I'm putting $1,000 in first. Starting in February, I'm going to start attacking my car loan. Get that paid off. I'm hoping in like 6 weeks or 6 months. So by the summer, then I'll move back to putting money into my emergency fund, which my goal is to have 2,500. So if I fund 1,000, that leaves me with $276 left over. So this is basically like my extra money that I can put towards bills for next month because I don't have any bills to cover in January. Everything is all covered up. So what do I want? What do I want to fund? Normally, so I will. I can do one of two things. I can fund my car and then like small things. or I can fund just a bunch of small things and deal with my car later. I think I'm just gonna go for quality or quantity. So I will fund everything that's like $20 and less. So that's 67. So that leaves me with 200. Wow, that's perfect. Okay, so then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fund, because I set aside 200 for gas, or I'm sorry, 200 for groceries. So I will fund that, and that'll leave me $8.62. So I can set this money aside in my debt paydown account, which I'm going to use to hold the money for my car. Or I can just throw it in discretionary. Like $8 is not a lot. So it's not like I'm going to be missing out on anything if I don't put it in my car fund. So yeah, I'm going to throw this in discretionary. So this month is getting a bonus in discretionary. I've already put $100, which I'm trying to find where that is. So I'm just going to put it in discretionary and then call that good. So yeah, that was fun. I mean, I got my emergency fund funded $1,000. That was my goal to get done by the end of the month, which we're halfway through the month, and that's good. I covered a number of bills for February, because what that's going to do is it's going to lessen the amount of money that I need to put towards bills in February when I get paid on the 29th. The way my bills are scheduled, like, yes, my rent is my biggest bill and it's due in the beginning of the month, but I have several $100 of bills also due like kind of the middle of the month, which means when I get paid in February on the 12th, which is when my first paycheck of February, that paycheck would need to cover all my bills from the 12th to the 26th. Well, that's pretty much like $600 or $700 worth of bills, plus another 900 something for my first half of rent for March, which means basically that paycheck is going to go really quickly. So, yeah, I'm happy with how we kind of funded everything. Yeah, like I said, I might go back to making videos every week. This 2-week break in between was really rough. And also, you are probably not going to hear me talk about Monarch much more, because I am kind of 99% committed to not renewing Monarch anymore. So with that, I'm going to end this video, and I will see you in the next video.